Imagine being the first one in your family to graduate college, and you're so excited until your story comes to an abrupt end just weeks before your birthday. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hey, hi, hello, my name is Kenzie. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome to my corner of the internet. I post true crime content, so if you are interested in that, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I post true crime videos for you every single week. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the fact that these are real people and real tragedies that we will be discussing in today's case. I in no way, shape, or form am doing this out of malice. This is all information that I have found online and I'm compiling it into this video. My full intention in creating this content is strictly for victim advocacy and to bring awareness around these crimes that were committed. In today's video, we will be discussing themes of rape and sexual assault, so if those things bother you in any way, shape, or form, please exit out of the video now. I will catch you in the next one. It is all good. Take care of yourself, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And with that out of the way, let's get into today's case. Today's case covers Faith Hedgepeth. Faith was born September 26, 1992, to parents Connie and Roland Hedgepeth. She was born in Warren County, North Carolina. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. If I am not, I apologize sincerely. Faith was born into the Hawali-Saponi tribe, which is a Native American tribe based out of North Carolina. She was the youngest of 4 siblings. She had 2 older brothers, Chadwick and Caleb, and 1 older sister, Rolanda, who was 18 when Faith was born. Not too long after Faith was born, her mother, Connie, and father, Roland, went their separate ways. Connie said she named her Faith because that's what she needed in order to raise all of her children. Married to a man that was addicted to drugs. That wasn't one of the sources that I read. I don't know how accurate that is, but I thought that that was sweet because later on, Roland, her father, goes on to mention Faith was a gift to him and that he was in a very, very low point in his life when she was born, and he has never shied away from the fact that he was his little gift. So I thought that that was really sweet of the meaning behind her name. Upon the separation, Faith lived with her mom in Warren County, and her father moved away to Hickory, North Carolina. Not too far away from them, but again, they did separate. I couldn't find too much information about Faith's childhood. However, we will kind of start with like high school era. It was said that Faith had really, really good grades in high school. Because Faith had such good grades in high school and participated in extracurricular activities, it got her the Gates Mullum Scholarship that she then went on to use in the University of North Carolina in Churchill, North Carolina. Faith was in college to become a pediatrician. Evening of September 12th started around 5:45 that evening. Faith and her roommate Karina went to a meeting that Faith had hoped to join for a sorority called Alpha Pi Omega. At around 7:15, she left the sorority because she had a paper to write, and she was actually writing it about the history of her tribe. Karina and Faith went to the Davis Library. They arrived around 8 p.m. that evening, and then around 8:30 and in between 8:30 and 9, Faith was texting her dad about her hopes of joining the sorority. So around 11:30 that evening, Faith had actually left Karina at the library, and then briefly returned. Like, she had briefly left, so I'm assuming she might have went to take a phone call or something of that nature, and then returned back. Once Faith had returned from, I'm assuming, making this phone call, she and Karina left and went back to their apartment, and they arrived back around 12. About a half an hour later, so around midnight 12:30, they left again to go to a nightclub. The two went to a nightclub called Thrill, which has since been closed. They were both under the age of 21. This club allowed individuals under the age of 21 to join in for dancing, so they were permitted to enter the premises, but they were not allowed to purchase alcohol. The morning of the 7th, they arrived there about 12:40, and about an hour and a half of dancing, Karina had said to police that she started to get an upset stomach, and that she wanted to leave. However, CCTV footage doesn't actually show them leaving until 2:06. So probably right around the time that she said that she had an upset stomach and wanted to leave. The CCTV footage of Karina and Faith leaving is the last visual presence of Faith, so there's no acknowledgement of Faith after 2:06. So the pair returned back to their apartment around 3 in the morning. The neighbor who actually lived below them was awake watching TV, and she said that she heard 3 sounds from the apartment above, which would have been Karina and Faith's apartment. 2 of the sounds sounded like, the 2 walking in, and then the 3rd sound sounded like a heavy bag being dropped or like furniture getting moved around or something of that nature. So likely the 2 came in, one of them dropped their bag, and that's what the neighbor downstairs was hearing. Around 3:40, so 40 minutes after they had arrived home, Faith had actually sent a text message to Karina's ex-boyfriend. The text message had basically said, "Hey, can you come over? Karina needs you more. Aha. No. Please let her know you care." And then immediately after that, a secondary text was sent that just said the word "than." And it's speculated that instead of "aha," Faith was actually correcting herself with the "than" that she had then sent to Edwards. I don't even believe he actually came over that night. This text exchange between Brandon and, these text messages that were sent from Faith to Brandon were the last actual activity that had happened on Faith's phone. Brandon actually didn't text back until about 4:16 that same morning, basically saying, who is this? Faith was texting Brandon, Karina's ex-boyfriend. Karina was actually calling him. I believe she called him multiple times and he never actually answered. And so then eventually Karina called another friend that she had named Jordan, and Jordan actually came by to pick her up around 4:25 that morning. Karina told police that she thought that Faith was asleep, so she left the door unlocked because she wasn't aware. She didn't know if she was going to come back or not, but she had left the apartment door unlocked. When Jordan picked Karina up, he actually took her to somebody else's house that was on a different street, but like I said, Karina had left the door unlocked because I'm pretty sure she wasn't sure if she was going to end up staying, but she arrived at that other friend's house around 4:30 in the morning and actually did end up staying the night there. So Karina woke up around 10 o'clock the next morning, and at that point she was trying to get a ride back to the apartment, and so she's called Faith. That was her first call to try to get back to the apartment. Faith never answered, and so around 10:30 Karina finally had gotten in touch with one of her other friends, and that friend went and picked her up and took her back to the apartment. Karina said she got back to the apartment around 11 o'clock that morning, and when they arrived, the 2 walked in together and started calling for Faith, and Faith did not answer. So Karina walked to her room to see, maybe she was still asleep, something along those lines. But whenever Karina opened the door, there laid Faith's lifeless body. They immediately called 911 upon the discovery of the body.
Okay, you say your friend is unconscious?
He's unconscious. I just walked in the apartment and looks like there's blood everywhere.
Listen to me. Somebody's already sending me ambulance. Okay, I need to get some information from you, and I'm gonna help. I'm gonna tell you how to help her. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. How old is she?
She's 19.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to touch her, but
listen to me. Is she breathing?
I don't know.
You need to check and see. Is she breathing?
I don't think so.
Okay, listen to me.
There's blood everywhere.
There's what?
There's blood everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, is she on her back or is she laying on her stomach?
She's on her back, but I think she fell off the bed because she's off the bed. There's blood all over the pillows, in the comforter. I just don't know what happened.
Whenever Karina and her friend found Faith's body, there was a pool of blood under her head. She was kind of hanging half off of the bed. and she was partially nude. According to an autopsy report that was released in September of 2014, so 2 years after Faith was found deceased, it was stated that she had died of blunt force trauma to the head. So in between the time that Karina had left and 10 o'clock that next or 11 o'clock that next morning, Faith had been murdered. It is said that she was beaten to death. She was absolutely bludgeoned. Police arrived on the scene. They started to investigate. So the blood, in addition to being pulled underneath Faith's head, it was also on the closet door as well as the wall. During the investigation, the police found a Bacardi bottle that had tissue fragments, to which they believed that was used as the murder weapon. In addition to finding the murder weapon and Faith's cause of death, and they did actually find a semen sample from around Faith's body. It doesn't actually say if it was from intercourse or if it was from it being around the body, like if the ejaculation had happened on her body or if it was actually inside of her body. We're unsure if she was raped before or after the murder. Police were there wasn't ever evidence that she was actually raped, but there was semen evidence and she was partially nude, so they said that it was more likely than not that she was. However, if it was before or after, police were unsure. Also found they said it was a white fast food bag, that on this fast food bag was written, "I'm not stupid bitch," and "jealous." They had started to build out this profile. They actually had a person of interest who was Karina's boyfriend at the time, Eric Jones. And the reason Eric was their main person of interest was because he had a history of domestic violence and he had also made threats towards Faith in the past. And the same night, he had actually texted a friend asking for forgiveness for what he's about to do. Later that evening, he posted on Twitter the same thing, like, "Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to do, and the women that don't deserve me, and the ones that wish me dead." Something like crazy like that. I'll post a picture of the tweet here. Immediately threw up red flags for investigators. They were like, he knows where the apartment is. There's DNA evidence of someone that had already been here before, because it was in a completely different room than where Faith's body was found. So they were like, okay, it has to be this guy. So they collected the DNA samples, and they actually pulled Jones into the police station, and they were like, "We want your DNA." He was very reluctant at first, but then eventually submitted a DNA sample, and then they tested Jones's DNA sample against the DNA sample that they had built from the semen that was collected at the scene, and he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. The officers had actually contacted a lot of the men that were at the Thrill nightclub that night and asked them to submit DNA samples as well, all of which didn't match the DNA sample that was found at the scene. Brandon, the ex-boyfriend that Faith had texted on Karina's behalf, he had also been asked to submit a DNA sample, and it again did not coincide with the DNA evidence that they had found at the scene. So police were kind of like, who could this be? They had exhausted everyone that they had thought could possibly be a suspect. So at this point, like I said, police had exhausted every person that they thought could be associated to Faith's murder. And they had conducted thousands upon thousands of interviews and could not find anyone who had matched the DNA profile that was found at Faith and Karina's apartment. This mail was turned over to police by one of Faith's friends, and the voicemail was time-stamped at 1:23 in the morning, and it essentially sounded like a three-way conversation. And according to CCTV footage, this would have been around the time that Faith and Karina were in the nightclub, because like I said, the CCTV footage showed them leaving at 2:06 that morning of the 7th. So this voicemail was timestamped for 1:23 a.m. You can hear Faith crying for help, and then you can hear a female voice saying, "I think she's dying." And then you heard a third voice, which was a male and said, "Do it anyhow." So it was suspected that this was Karina and Eric. So Eric was the ex-boyfriend or current boyfriend, I believe, at the time of Karina, which, like I said, the CCTV footage shows Faith and Rosie leaving at 2:06 in the morning. However, there were a lot of speculations about this because there was a known issue at the time with metadata being manipulated on voicemails. So it is possible that this could have been after they had left the nightclub. And Faith's father actually was convinced that this was what had taken place when his daughter was murdered. He swore, and the lead investigator at the time agreed with that. It was suspected in the when it was being analyzed that there was background noise, but it wasn't consistent with percussions, loud beats, or amplifiers that would have been in coagulation with the nightclub. There was no glass clinkings. There was nothing like that. Nothing of that nature in the background noise. However, like I said, there was background noise. So this voicemail was very confusing, to say the least, because we're unsure if this was something that was actually her unfortunate murder, or if it was something that, like I said, was a misdial at the nightclub while they were dancing, and it was just misinterpreted. So this one was, like I said, this was one that really threw everyone for a loop. And this has been something throughout this entire case. Police usually were very open with the public and with the media about, what they were finding in their investigations or anything of that nature. But they actually didn't release any information on this case until a very long time after it had taken place. The police actually never released how Faith had died, like what her cause of death was. In November of that year of 2012, Faith's parents were actually the ones that released to the media that she was beaten to death, because it was on her death certificate. At this point, they had received the death certificate, and they had actually disclosed with the media how Faith had passed away. And then in 2016, so 4 years after Faith was murdered, they put the DNA evidence into the system to where it can kind of build what they think the person would look like based off of their DNA. And I will insert that image of what they thought the killer looked like here. So they thought the killer had looked like this. The police actually made it known that this is what they thought the killer looked like. And from here, they were still looking. They still hadn't found anything. Faith's Facebook page had been started to try to find justice for her, because, like I said, it had been 4 years since she was murdered, and there were still no answers. And this poor family just wanted to find out what had happened to Sweet Faith, and they couldn't. There was nothing to find. There was no information, anything like that. Fast forward to September of 2021. Miguel, I cannot pronounce this name to save the life of me, so I'm...
Miguel Salguero Olivares
was arrested for a drinking and driving incident, and Miguel actually was never a suspect in this case. So at his time of arrest, Miguel was 28 years old, and this was exactly 9 years after Faith had originally been murdered. He was arrested on September 16th of 2021, so exactly 9 years and 9 days after the murder had originally taken place. And since he was 28 at the time of his arrest, that would have made him 17 at the time of the murder. So Miguel was 17 at the time of the murder, but it was stated that he moved to Durham, North Carolina 2 years prior to Faith's murder. So in 2010, Miguel had moved to the United States, and a neighbor actually said that he spoke little to no English when he first arrived in the United States. There was not a lot of information that I could find on him. Like I said, he was a painter, and like contractor, a handyman essentially. There was no direct correlation between him and Faith, or at least that the police have said. So, keeping the fact that this case was very widely, like, it was not disclosed. Like, none of the details were disclosed whatsoever. Keeping that in mind, to this day, police have still not disclosed how Miguel and Faith knew each other. Like I said, though, with those notes that were left, it is almost abundantly clear that he knew her from somewhere. Or it could have been a case of mistaken identity. Like I said, he was arrested in September of 2021 for a drinking and driving incident. Once you are arrested, your DNA is taken and then input into the system. So once the DNA had been put into the system, it had kind of flagged for investigators that it had matched a previous sample in the system. So it was, like I said, it was put in the system and then threw up a flag saying, hey, this matches this DNA profile. The DNA profile pops up whenever his DNA is inputted into the system, and police actually said that the palm print, there was a palm print found on the Bacardi bottle that they had found at the apartment, and it has said that the palm print that was on it matched Miguel's handprint to a T, as well as obviously the DNA profile is matching. In addition to the drinking and driving charge that he was originally arrested for, Miguel was also incarcerated for the suspected first-degree murder of Faith. This case went unsolved for 9 years up until 2021. And to this day, as I'm recording this, it's May 6th, 2023. There has been no new developments. He is still incarcerated. There was no bond set, so he can't be bonded out. I believe the police are still building a case against him, as well as the prosecutors, etc. It has taken almost 2 years since he's been arrested to actually have a court hearing. His mother made a statement saying that he was innocent, he wouldn't have killed anyone, and that he didn't even know this girl. I'm assuming with her statement, he is going to plead not guilty, which will then, again, of course, bring it to trial. And with it being ongoing, I am looking forward to seeing how that case unfolds in court. Unless they give him some kind of plea deal or something along those lines. But like I said, I suspect that he will plead not guilty. Based off of the statement that his mom had given, I believe that is most likely going to be the case, that he won't admit to it. And like I said, the details of what actually has happened to her is still, like, they're still very murky. So a lot of the details in this case are very murky because it went unsolved for so long. And like I said, the police haven't disclosed how they knew each other, where the two had met, anything of that nature. All in all, this was a very, very, very sad case, and my heart truly goes out to Faith's family, especially after, 9 years after she had been murdered, they finally get an answer, and here it is, 11 years after the murder, and he's still not been fully charged for the crimes. This wonderful person that was in their life, lost her life 11 years ago and has still yet to receive justice. Faith's family do have a Facebook page as well as a website. They currently have a scholarship. I believe they have a couple of scholarships, but I know of one for sure that is the Faith Smile Scholarship. That is actually for Indigenous women. to go to college, because like I said, Faith was going to be the first one in her family to actually graduate college. So in honor of her memory, they actually started a scholarship to help other Indigenous women to attend college, which I believe is wonderful. So since Faith's murder in 2012, Rolanda, who was like a second mother to Faith, has actually been very outspoken on social media platforms about the murder of her sister. The whole family is really the only one that I couldn't really find any information on that like publicly spoke out about the case or anything like that was Chadwick. But whenever I went through the Facebook page for this video, I did see him tagged in a lot of the posts that Rolanda had made. So I'm assuming, just like the rest of the family, he was just as invested in finding out who had killed his sister. That being said, that is all for me today. I hope you guys stay safe out there, and always, always, always take care of yourself. If I missed any details in this case, I do truly apologize. There was a lot, especially with this being solved 9 years later, and it's still not fully being solved, and a lot of the details still being murky on what actually happened the night that Faith was murdered. Like I said, if I missed anything, I truly do apologize. I am only human. Please be nice to me. I do my best to give you guys as much coverage as I can find on these cases. While also taking into consideration some of the details that are on the internet. May not always be accurate and may not always be true. I try to pull as much information I can from reliable sources. However, there is always going to be misinterpretations or mistypings or things of that nature. Like I said, I wish no disrespect to the family. And I am happy that they finally figured out who did it. I just wish them the closure on what happened and why. I will catch you guys in the next one. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to me for more true crime content. We like to give a platform for victims who no longer can speak, or families who their cases might not be getting the coverage that they all rightfully deserve. That being said, I will see you next time, and have a good one. Bye, guys!